인간인 이상 누구나 성적 욕구가 있습니다. 하지만 그 욕구를 충족시키기 위해 아무하고나 관계를 맺을 순 없습니다. 분명 테크닉이 필요하죠. 대부분의 사람들은 이성에 관해 잘못된 매체나 경험담을 기준하기 때문에 객관적으로 이해하기가 어렵습니다. 남녀가 어떻게 만남을 갖게 되는지 평생을 연구한 한 과학자가 말하는 남녀관계가 이루어지는 법입니다. 첫 번째, 거짓말. 이성을 유혹하기 위해서 하는 가장 대표적인 행동은 거짓말입니다.
They lie in ways that attempt to embody the mate preferences of the person they're trying to attract. And so men do lie, they deceive about their income, their status, so they exaggerate their income by about 20%. They tack on about 2 inches to their height. So if they're 5'10", they round up to 6 feet. So they don't, like if they're 5'10", they don't say that they're gigantic, but they kind of round it up in the more desirable direction. Women tend to deceive about weight, so they tend to shave about 15 pounds off of their reported weight. And both sexes post photos that are not truly representative of what they actually look like. So they might post photos of when they were younger. I'll just give you one story about a colleague of mine who is a male who's doing internet dating, and he picked only women who self-described as 7s on the 1 to 7 on attractiveness. So the most attractive, as self-reported. And he went out with this one woman, and she was missing her front teeth. And he said, well, call me picky, but missing her front teeth, and she thinks she's like the top of attractiveness. He was a little disappointed about that. And women, of course, are disappointed. They meet a guy who they think is this physically fit, athletic guy, and he comes up, he's 300 pounds and overweight. So people do find out.
두 번째, 실제로 사람을 만나야 하는 이유. 실제로 사람을 만나봐야 하는 이유는 눈으로 보이는 이미지와 글로 자신을 표현하는 것 외에 직접 만나야만 알 수 있는 요소들 때문입니다.
What I tell people is you really have to meet the person and interact, in part because of the deception, but also because what happens with internet dating is that the photograph tends to overwhelm. All the other cues are written statements, and we weren't really evolved to process written statements, but we were evolved to respond to physical cues, and men tend to attend to the visual cues much more than women. So women in their mate selection, they have olfactory cues. So what does the guy sound like? His vocal qualities, that's auditory cues. But olfactory cues, what does he smell like? Women have a more acute sense of smell than men do. So if the guy doesn't smell right, even if he embodies all the other qualities women want, that's a deal breaker. But one of the things to assess things like emotional stability, which is absolutely critical in long-term mating, is to do something like go on a trip together, take a vacation where you're even in an unfamiliar environment where you have to cope with things that you're not familiar with, and as opposed to an environment where it's very predictable. And so you get a greater exposure, because one of the hallmarks of emotional instability is how they respond to stress. So emotionally unstable people tend to have a long latency to return to baseline after a stressful event. And so this is the sort of information you can't get on a coffee date. You can only get by assessing it over time.
세 번째, 매력 포인트. 여성들이 좋아하는 남성상입니다. 마음에 없던 여성도 다음의 상황에서는 남성이 매력적으로 보인다고 합니다.
Women are more likely to prioritize what I call bad boy qualities. So guys who are very self-confident, guys who are strut, guys who are a little arrogant, guys who are risk-taking, guys who defy conventions. Women are more attracted to those guys in short-term mating than long-term mating. Whereas in long-term mating, they go more for the good dad qualities. Is this guy dependable? Is he going to be a good father to my children? If you took like a still photo of some of these rock stars and asked women how attractive the guy is versus tell him he's a famous rock star and showed the thousands of women screaming at him, they judge him entirely differently in terms of his attractiveness. If there are thousands of other women who find him attractive, women find him attractive. And so that's why you have the groupie phenomenon. This is a female colleague of mine went to a conference, an academic conference, and she found the organizer of this conference to be really attractive, and then saw him 6 months later and wondered, well, what was I thinking? He doesn't seem very attractive at all. And what it was is, when he was the organizer, he was at the center of the attention structure. He was the guy up on stage directing everybody, and everyone was attending to him.
네 번째, 서로에게 끌리는 무의식적 이유. 어떤 이성에게 호감이 가는지는 잘 알지만 왜 그런지는 잘 모릅니다. 이것을 무의식적 끌림이라고 하죠. 무의식적으로 왜 서로에게 끌리는지에 대한 과학적 설명입니다.
He's aware that he's attracted to her and attracted to her physical appearance, but he might not be aware of why. And so men find women with a low waist hip ratio attractive, but they might rarely will they know, oh, low waist hip ratio is actually associated with higher fertility, lower endocrinological problems, lower age, etc. So we're sometimes aware of what we want, but we are unaware of why we want it.
다섯 번째, 서로에게 끌리는 가시적 이유입니다.
That the whole topic of status and what leads to high status and low status is a topic I'm currently investigating. Published a couple scientific articles on it. I'll mention one. It intersects with mating in interesting ways in that higher status gives people the ability to choose from a wider pool of potential mates than they would if they have low status. And so one of the reasons that people strive for status is because they have access to more desirable mates. Conversely, having desirable mates endows you with higher status. If you're a male, you have a very attractive woman on your arm, that leads to high status. And so there's a reciprocal link between status and mating in that way. An older, unattractive guy and a stunningly beautiful woman as a girlfriend, and they say, well, what's this guy all about? And they say, oh, he must be very high in status, he must be very wealthy, he must have a lot going for him.
메이팅, 짝짓기라고 하죠. 남녀가 만나 짝을 이루는 것 자체는 어려운 것이 아닙니다. mate라는 단어 뒤에 market이라는 단어가 붙기 때문에 어려워진 겁니다. 폴 시브라이트이라는 교수가 자신의 책에서 한 말입니다. 우리는 거짓말을 하거나 속이거나 유혹하거나 괴롭히거나 성관계를 위해 목숨을 끊은 수많은 세대의 남성들과 경제적 특권을 얻어내기 위해 자신의 신체에 접근시켜 유혹하거나 거짓말을 하거나 조작한 수많은 세대의 여성들의 후손이다.